Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. What are we talking about this week, Heather?
Ooh, I'm very excited because, first of all, we have a special guest. Sunny
Yay.
Bravo is with us.
Hello.
Yay!
Hello, hello.
Welcome, Sunny.
Thank you for having
And
me.
oh, we're thrilled. And first of all, she has the coolest name ever. And
Coolest.
second of all, she just told us that 26 years as a dog trainer. That is incredible. So bravo to you. Oh,
Bravo to me.
I truly did not do that on purpose, but bravo to you.
Thank you.
And we're off. Christy, take us away.
And I just feel like everyone should know that Sunny's name fits her perfectly.
Yes.
Because I met Sunny and didn't know her name. And then when I found out her name, I was like, well, that's the perfect name for her.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's like your parents saw into the future and just knew you were going to be this beautiful light. And we're like, we must name her Sunny.
absolutely.
I try to live up to the name.
You do.
You do. You do a good job.
We're fangirling.
Yeah. Well, we like to start out the podcast anytime we have a guest and ask them what dogs they live with and what their favorite thing about their dogs are.
Yes. So I live with three of my best friend girls that are not humans. My oldest is Chrysanthemum. She is a standard poodle and she will be turning 9 on June 16th. Her and I are both Geminis. We
Ooh.
suit each other perfectly. And then
Wow.
I also have Confetti, who is my Chinese crested. She just turned 4 in November of 2024, and she's like a cat. She's I don't see her unless I'm feeding somebody or passing out treats. She's just asleep in a corner, happy as can be. And then I have my latest uh, craziness added to the house, which is Chamomile, who is the opposite of her namesake. She is
Mhm.
not calm in any way, shape, or form. She's soothing to me when I need her to be, but that's about it. She's my Dutch Shepherd, who will be 2 years old on the 27th of this month. And she is teaching me a lot more than I thought I knew about
Mm,
dogs. Yeah,
mm. Doesn't it just happen that way?
it really, really does.
Yep. I think it's so funny. So anybody who listened to our last episode, we actually talked about chamomile or camo. So everybody go back and listen, talking about camo and her way to play with her teeth out and
Yeah, hackles, full head to tail hackles
ready to
Yes.
roll. I love it.
the whole time. Yeah.
I one did not remember that Chrysanthemum is 9. She looks amazing for her age.
Oh,
Holy
yeah.
cow.
Yeah,
And
she
then
does.
2, Chinese crested. How did that happen?
So I originally was going to, so it happened during COVID.
Well,
Everything
So
happened during
many
COVID.
things
everything
happen
happens during
during
COVID.
COVID.
So many things. Yeah.
Nothing counts.
She was a whim. I was bored sitting at home and I was doing virtual lessons during COVID, but
Hmm.
I was like, I just want to get my hands in something a little bit different. And I started researching small breeds and I fell in love with Chinese crested breed. They're just incredible, smart little dogs. And when I found her breeder, she fit everything that I was looking for, temperament wise, in the breed and just the breeder, everything she did. And so I originally got Confetti for confirmation
Oh,
and sports. And Confetti said, no, no, no. I am a cat trapped in a Chinese crested body. She wanted nothing to do with anything. We tried barn hunt. She thought the rat was disgusting. I tried her in fast cat. She said, no, no, no. I do not run and chase plastic bags. And we tried dock diving. She said, you want to get my hair wet? And
oh
so
my
she,
gosh.
she just lounges around the house
I love
wherever she
it.
wants, whenever.
I mean, hey, best laid plans, right? They don't always
Yes,
work out the way we want, well, what the way we want them to. So
yes.
sometimes we got to
Yeah.
roll with it.
She is the best snuggler though, when you just need, if you have like a
Oh,
cough or a cold, she sits perfectly right on your chest and warms it up, and it's just the best feeling. So she is an amazing snuggle bug of a buddy.
oh, that
Yeah.
is like the sweetest
Yeah.
thing. How
I
much
like
does she weigh?
7 whopping pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She's
that's
tiny.
a little bit less, Trin likes to lay on the chest, but 24 pounds on the chest is a different effect than
It does.
7.
It does have a different effect. Yeah.
She may be trying to kill you, Heather.
Yeah. That's a
Quite
lot.
possible. It's quite possible.
Pressure the lungs a little.
So, how did you get into dog training as a profession? I mean, if you've been doing this 26 years, you have seen a lot of different eras in dog training, shall we say. So, where did you start?
So I've been doing this 26 years professionally. I've been working with and around dogs since I was 6 years old. My stepdad actually bred and raised and showed in conformation Siberian Huskies. So I grew up around
Oh,
Ah,
a not super biddable breed. And so trying to figure out how to get the dogs to want to work with me as a child definitely put training in a different perspective for me than
mm,
maybe other people or children that grew up with more biddable breeds.
yeah.
And so that's what I started out with. And then I would walk neighbors' dogs. All of my family, extended family, always had dogs. And so they would ask me to help with their dogs, or if their dog was sick as a child, they wanted me to diagnose.
whoa.
Bet Sunny.
So,
She's only 6, but she can do it.
you know, yeah. And so I kind of just grew up around a huge variety of breeds. Obviously, I was just a child. I
Mhm.
didn't know anything. And then when I turned 18, I moved out and started working at Petco and fell in love with the not with the trainer there, but
Yeah.
with her energy and personality and just her being. She was a wonderful human being, and she would hold group classes there at Petco. And she was one of the first ones that started bringing the clicker training program into corporate.
No
Um,
way.
yeah, and so I had not heard anything ever of clicker training, and I was 18 at the time. And so I would ask if I could kind of just watch her group classes. And so I ended up mentoring underneath her and learned a whole lot. She was what would be considered now a force-free positive
Mm.
reinforcement trainer. So I learned a lot from her. How to read body language was probably the biggest thing she instilled in me. That, just because a wagging tail is happening doesn't mean the dog is necessarily okay with whatever is going on. So that's pretty much how I started out. And then as I was learning that, I did dog walking and pet sitting. And so I got to see even greater variety of dogs in their home environments, with
Oh,
strangers
yeah.
coming in with and without their family home, being able to handle dogs on walks and seeing how they reacted to wildlife and other dogs. And it was a huge learning and growing opportunity for me as a young adult. And yeah, that's pretty much where I started, and then just kind of kept going from there.
Wow. How
Yeah.
amazing for that to have been the first person that you met in the industry. What a gift.
Yes. Yes. It could have gone a completely different direction.
Oh, for sure.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
100%.
will say, the moment I knew Sunny was something special was we were at Barn Hunt and Jackson went up to her to say hi and she scratched his butt. And I saw him do like the slightest lick of the lip and look sideways. And I was like, oh, he doesn't like that. So I went to call him back. But before I could even say anything, Sunny said, oh, I'm so sorry you don't like that, buddy. Here, I'll scratch your shoulders instead. And I was like, you caught on to that? Like you really? And she's like, oh, it was so clear. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, thank you. Like
Yeah.
nobody sees these things. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to be rude and be like, please don't touch my dog's bottom. Like, like, that sounds weird. She was just doing butt scratches.
Yeah.
Why'd you gotta make it weird,
I
Christy?
know. 'Cause I'm Christy.
Oh,
But
that's so
then,
funny.
and then after that, I found out you were a dog trainer. I was like, well,
Mm.
that makes so much sense.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that initially you and I met from the positive reinforcement training group that was kind of trying to get together in the valley here.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a business card exchange or something of the like. My memory is terrible.
I think so.
But I just remember looking at your Instagram and being like, she's just up my alley. And then when you started coming to Barn Hunt and, I sort of realized, oh, I know who this is. I said to Christy, I go, she are people. You just wait. I'm like, this is a good one.
Thank you.
Exactly how that conversation went.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Too
just a little
funny.
paraphrase right there. It's just a little
Yeah.
paraphrase.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Initially, you worked with more aggressive dogs or aggression cases, right?
I did. Yeah.
Oh,
So when I was mentoring with the trainer at Petco, I was just doing family pets. It was just, basic obedience, puppies, young adults, even some older adults that just wanted to get some basics down. As I continued with the dog walking and pet sitting, I'll share this story with you guys. I had been learning from my mentor how to handle canine aggression directed towards humans and other animals, not just dogs. It was really of huge interest to me. So she kind of took me under her wing and we just expanded on that knowledge wise for my brain. And on one of my pet sitting jobs, I was called out for an interview, and it was a young family and they needed somebody to come for 4 days and 3 nights to let their Rottweiler out. So we met and I walked in the door, and I distinctly remember to this day that it was almost frozen in time, the way that the dog looked at me from the hallway. And they said, "Stop right there. Let me put her outside." And so I froze still. Something was very off. They put the dog outside. I came in, sat at the kitchen table. We did the interview and they asked if I would like to meet the dog. And I said, sure. So they let her in, and I was sitting at the kitchen table. My arms were folded across and I was just leaning slightly forward. And the dog came very stealthily over to me and stared, and her face was about 7 inches away from mine. And I just told myself, try not to breathe and do not move.
yep.
And they said, oh, you're the best one she's done with. She tried to bite everybody else.
No.
And so they said, okay, we'll go put her back outside. So I'm frozen still this entire time. They get her back outside and she explodes at the window right when they close it, or at the sliding door. And they said, so what do you think? Do you think you'll watch her? And I said, yes, I will watch your dog. I knew. So 20 years ago, pet sitting is not what it is today, where there's a
Yeah.
lot more pet sitters that have training knowledge and behavior knowledge and breed knowledge. I felt comfortable enough with body language at that time. I was only 19 or 20, I think, that I answered yes because I didn't want anybody else to get bit. I
Oh,
knew that I could protect myself enough to at least let this dog go potty outside, feed it, and water it twice a day.
that you
That's
could
all they need.
manage her. You could manage her well enough to do it
Yes.
safely. I get you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Oh,
they left that night and I was to start the next morning. And for 4 days, I came loaded up with, and I had cleared with them if she had any food allergies or sensitivities, and they were fine, or the dog was fine with everything. And so I came loaded up with bacon, cheese, steak, anything and everything you could think of that was smelly. I came, and the next morning I arrived and I knocked and started talking before I even put the key in the lock. And the dog came right at the window and was just very unhappy. And so I immediately cracked the door open and threw treats as far away as I could. And I already had a trash can lid with me just in case.
I love it.
And the dog realized after the entire first day, so my first 2 visits, that I came with food. And so we were best friends from that day. For the rest of the visits, I never watched the dog again, but that was my biggest moment in how quickly it could go south if somebody did not know how to read body language signals. And we have to put our egos aside because these dogs tell us very clearly when they do and do not like something. And that was really the start of my real deep interest in canine aggression, reactivity, frustration, all of that stuff. So that dog kind of put it all into perspective. And then I kind of worked with aggression, primarily human aggression, for about 10 years.
Had to be
And
a
then it was
Rottweiler.
exhausting.
Had to be a Rottweiler. It is exhausting working
Yes.
those aggression cases, human, dog, whatever. It is, the stakes are so high
Yeah. Yeah.
in every way possible for the people, for the dogs, for the specific dog you're working, and then the other dogs in the environment. It is just so, so exhausting. And I give you props for doing 10 years, honestly.
Yeah.
It was probably more mentally draining. Then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
switched to puppies.
I get it because when I decided I was going to have my training business again, I was like, I'm doing puppies. I mean, I've had my own aggression issues with dogs in my own home, and I was like, I don't have the heart for it. I don't have it in me anymore.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I was like, give me the puppies, let me mold them and help people grow and sort of set things up with the best foundation possible so
Right.
that we don't have as much. I mean,
Yeah.
there's sometimes you can't, there's no way around it, but so that we don't have as much of the
Hmm.
aggression and the reactivity and everything else down the road, or at least they have tools. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
One of these things is not like the others.
Yeah.
Christy hates puppies. I'm just
It's
kidding. I
true.
don't hate
She
puppies,
does
but
say, oh, don't
I
lie.
don't
You
like them.
hate puppies.
I would never want one in my home full time.
You know what's
Really?
really
Oh,
hilarious?
Oh
You know,
no,
you know
I,
what's
puppies.
really
I
hilarious about this,
oh
Sunny?
no.
Christy also said she didn't want a Jackson. So, in like 10 years, when Christy has a puppy, I cannot wait to rewind all of the episodes and do like a whole mishmash of all the times Christy said, I don't want a
Yes.
puppy.
Amazing. I like it. I'm gonna be here for that.
Yes.
Well, I didn't want a dog as young as Jackson either. I thought one is way too young. Ugh,
Well, to
one
be
is way
fair,
too
in that case, you didn't know how young he was when you.
young. But I kept thinking,
Yeah.
this is puppy nonsense. I'm dealing with puppy nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I
I
got
love
all the
puppies.
records and was like, it really was puppy nonsense.
It really
Yeah.
was.
Thank goodness he's gonna grow out of some of these things.
Yeah.
We can hope. And he has.
He has, yes.
Yeah.
I love him. He's the sweetest guy. He's so
Oh,
silly and cute. I love him.
guy.
Praise God he has a good personality because he would have never made it home with Christy with just looks alone.
I mean, I thought he was cute, but like German Shepherds aren't my thing. Like squishy nose dogs, like pit bulls or boxers. Those are my thing. Labs.
That's fair. That's
Christy,
fair.
we have a shepherd person on the show. Stop talking smack.
I have a shepherd now.
She can join in on the smack. It's fine.
I mean, yeah. Okay, you start out getting your wits about you, learning as a little baby trainer, having a great
Mhm.
mentor. You decide, sure, let's do aggression. You do that for a
Started.
while. Then you're like, okay, I'm burnt out, which happens all the time, totally natural. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, now I'm going to do puppies. And then we get round to why you're actually on the pod, which is to talk about being a service dog trainer. So, when did that sort of happen at the same time, or how did that kind of all come about?
Yes and no at the same time. I had started the transition from aggression cases to puppies. And little backstory, I've always been a huge fan of Helen Keller and her story growing up and the teacher that helped her kind of mold her, helped her come out of her shell and become who she was. And so disabilities and service dogs and accessibility in the world was always of interest to me growing up and as an adult. I was just always drawn to it. And that has nothing to do with aggression cases, but that's just
Right.
backstory.
It's part of your
And
story.
so
It's fine.
that's pretty much story. So I started transitioning into puppies, and I got a call from a young woman who had in-home care. And so I wasn't sure what that meant at that time. I just wasn't aware of it. I think I was 28 or 29. And she had a black lab puppy, and she was actually wheelchair bound. And so she had minimal use of her hands and she had no use of her legs. And so her in-home care was actually two full-time nurses that would rotate day and night shift. She couldn't do a whole lot for herself independently. And so she had gotten this puppy. I didn't know it until I went and met her, but to be her service dog. And so
Oh,
she wanted at least the very basics. So the puppy just to learn just basic skills at home She actually wanted to do it right, but she wanted to then do basic skills in public and then possible leading into service dog work. And so anybody that knows me really well knows I love researching anything. If you wanted me to research like a dirt clod and how it forms, I would love to do that. Like if it involves research, I don't care what it is, I will deep dive into it. And so after I met her, we started doing the in-home basics. I had to figure out how to help her reinforce this puppy with minimal body functions for her. And
Yes.
so this puppy, typical lab, loved balls. And so I taught the puppy with me while I was at her home with the nurses there how to teach a retrieve to hand. And so the puppy would then go to the hand. And so we started then moving our hands around and going from standing to sitting so that the puppy would always take it to the palm. And so this woman's left hand was the most functional, more functional than her right hand. And so we ended up being able to teach the puppy to bring the ball to hand. And so she was able to throw treats with her right hand and kept the ball in her left hand after the puppy retrieved it. And so we were able to get that reinforcement base going so that if she dropped her treat pouch or if she just didn't have access to treats, she always had one of her nurses actually made it, which was pretty cool, a sew on ball holder that attached to her wheelchair handle.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah, and we have them now. I think Kong makes them where it's for the little
Oh,
clip, but it
Huh.
was something similar, but her nurse made it for her wheelchair handle. And so she was able to grab it with her hand and throw it for her dog. Dog would retrieve it. She'd put it back in the pouch. It was very comfortable for her hand to be able to use the ball for reinforcement. And so I then did a deep dive into service dog training because I enjoyed this woman was just the kindest person I had ever met. And the dog was lovely. She couldn't have picked a more perfect dog. And
Mm.
so I just did a deep dive research into how to do anything and all things service dog training related. And so I started that way and I got as many books as I could. There was very few online things in terms of signing up for things online and then going to them in person, but I did as many of those and seminars and workshops that I could. And so she was actually my first service dog client. I worked with her until the dog was about 2.5, pulling her wheelchair, retrieving items of clothing, pulling the zipper down from her jacket so that if her nurses were busy doing something and she needed something, she could ask the dog to do it. And so she was actually my first service dog client and black lab puppy. That probably was my happiest 2.5 years of my life was working
Oh,
with these people. Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So if she wouldn't have called me, I don't know that I would be where I am today in terms of being a service dog trainer. Yeah.
wow.
It's all
Isn't
thanks to
that
her.
funny how things
Yeah.
just happen, send you down a
Yeah.
path?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love how, to me, doing service dog training requires such an element of creativity
Yes.
because you're teaching specific tasks. And of course, I'm like going off the rails here, but
I would like it noted that
yep,
Heather has
I'm
gone off
going
the
off the
rails
rails.
and not Christy this.
Not Christy first.
Ooh.
So you're training these specific tasks, and every dog is different. Every client
Yes.
is different. Every
Yep.
disability is different. So
Yeah.
you're coming up with this creative connection to make all of that happen. That is
Mhm.
such a really cool piece of it. And
Yeah.
it takes a really special talent to be able to do that. You know, we talk about it. Oh, dog trainers, oh, you got a nail and I got a hammer. It's better to have a full toolbox, you know? And I
Right.
feel like in situations like this, it's really imperative that you have a really, really large toolbox
Yes.
because you have to
Yeah.
think outside the box.
Yeah.
Outside of the box and on the fly because
Yes.
sometimes it's the human, sometimes it's the dog that something isn't working for. And especially if you're in a public place, you have to be able to come up with 2 to 4 different things to try to resolve that potential issue for it to work for both parts of that leash. So
Mm,
yeah, lots of on the fly stuff happens.
that is
Mhm.
so very cool.
That's amazing. Would you mind just maybe telling people what the difference between a therapy dog, an emotional support dog, and a service dog is?
Sure, yeah. So they're not one and the same. They don't
What?
all have the same
Definitely
rights in
not.
public. Definitely not. I think a lot of people get confused due to the media's misinformation that they put out, meaning a lot of times we'll see some news stories, right, about an emotional service dog that bit somebody on an airplane. They're not one and the same. It's one or the other. So I'll start with not the least, but the one that has the least access rights.
Mm.
That would be typically emotional support and therapy dogs. They have the least access rights for public places that pets are not allowed. An emotional support dog, or and actually, it's an emotional support animal. It can
That's
be any
true.
species. Yep,
That is
it can be
true.
it can be any species, as long as it's allowed in your state and city ordinances. It can be anything that helps you feel better about yourself or about the moment that you're feeling or about the situation that you're in your home, whether that's a house, an apartment, a condo, an RV, wherever that is. They are allowed to remain with you in your residence. And it's just an animal or creature that makes you feel better. It helps soothe your feelings, it helps bring you comfort. That could be a fish, a bird, dog, cat, horse, pig, anything that helps you feel good. They are not allowed on airplanes. They are not allowed in hotels. They're not allowed in not pet friendly places. So if they serve food, not allowed. Nordstrom's may or may not allow them. I don't know. You got to ask them. They're typically pretty pet friendly, but if it serves food, not allowed to go in there unless it's a task trained service dog. A therapy animal, because it could be a variety of animals as well, are specifically trained to help bring comfort to a variety of people or a large group of people. And that could be anywhere from dogs that go into schools that help little kids that maybe have some reading difficulties. They get to be read to by those children. Or it could be an animal going into a hospital or hospice care, bringing comfort to a group of people or an individual. Also seen, and you guys might have seen it, or other people throughout the world might have seen it, at least in the US, therapy dogs at airports.
Yes, it's it's more
Yeah,
common now.
it is. It is definitely more common. It's very cool though.
I would love to
It,
do it. I hope I have a dog at some point that I can do it.
some of the dogs there are amazing.
They're incredible.
I just pictured Jackson doing it and barking at all the strangers. Don't touch me. Don't look at me.
But he could be very cute facial wise.
Oh my gosh.
Just don't look at him.
Tiago would be like, I literally am having the best day of my life.
Oh, see, he could do it.
But I do have a friend with a therapy pig who is an emotional support pig for her daughter, but she also then trained it to go to it's not a nursing home, but it might be a nursing home that she works in. And they all feed the pig Cheerios. And so
that's so sweet.
It goes to work with her almost daily.
I love that.
When I had a pit bull Daisy and we did quite a bit of therapy work, we worked alongside therapy birds and a therapy pig and a therapy miniature horse one time. And I also try to say to people that emotional support animals are for you and therapy animals are for others. Yeah. That is a distinction, but I have a special place in my heart for doing therapy work. It's really, I miss it very deeply. Yeah.
It's really beautiful to see teams out there and to really see animals, whatever species, that really enjoy it. And a lot of these animals, you can really see that they really truly enjoy visiting wherever they're visiting. They just, it's nice. And then seeing the patients or the kids or whoever their clientele is, you see their faces light up and almost like a just sigh of relief overcome them when they see their animal. And it's really beautiful. Yeah.
It's a gift.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so that's those two. So now what sets a service animal? Do we say animal? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Service animal, and I'll clarify because it's only two animals.
All right, go for it.
Federally, it's only two animals, a miniature horse and a dog.
Okay. Statewide, I was going to say, I was like, I'm going to ask you about miniature horses because I feel like I've heard that they can be.
No way.
Yeah. Yes, yes. So
we're like, what? Tell us more.
federally, those two animals are covered, miniature horses and dogs. There are some states that allow cats to be service animals for their human.
I'm
It
sorry,
is not,
what?
yes, there are
I
some
feel like
states.
cats would just knock your medication off the counter and be like, you get it.
Take it. Yeah. I can't, I should have had that prepped, but I don't recall the states that do allow. There's a handful of states that do
Okay.
allow it. And so they are allowed to be service cats in their state. If they were to cross, say, into Arizona, it is not, they're not recognized here. So they do have to remain within their municipalities.
Yeah.
But so federally, miniature horse and dog, some states also allow cats. A lot of people, like I had said earlier, mistake emotional support and service dog for the same thing. Emotional support is not a specific thing trained. The dog or cat or whatever is just there and it helps you feel good when you're feeling down, perhaps. A service dog is or miniature horse is an animal that has specifically been task trained to mitigate the symptoms of a person's disability. Typically, it's considered a life-altering disability. So some people say, well, it's just anxiety. Can't you just deal with it? Some people, it might be just anxiety, and they might be able to process it better than other people. For other people, that anxiety is life-altering and debilitating. I'll give a little personal info. I had some pretty traumatic stuff happen a while back, and I had initially anxiety that I could just deal with stuff. After my traumatic incident, I couldn't just deal with stuff. I would go to the grocery store and I would sit in the parking lot for about 20 to 30 minutes, just trying to get out of the car, just to get out of the car. And that's when I realized, okay, I might need a little bit more help than I thought.
Yeah. I can't wish this one away.
Yeah.
Probably need to
just
do
breathe
something.
through it.
Yeah.
So there are different levels of anxiety for folks.
Sure. Absolutely.
And people just handle things differently, whether it's anxiety or depression or anything else. People just process things differently. And so what might be life altering to me may not be life altering to somebody else. It just depends on that person's processing and how they are able to cope with it. And if they have support to help deal with everything. If there's more support, they might be able to cope with things better than somebody else who doesn't have any support. So there's just so many factors that go into a huge variety of things on whether or not somebody needs or does not need a service animal to assist them. What I have always told my clients is if you're going to work with me and I'm going to teach you and your dog a task, it has to be able to be held up in court. We don't want to get laughed out of the courtroom. So a dog laying on somebody's lap, that's a very gray area. A judge may or may not see that as a task. That is life altering for your disability. I teach Chrysanthemum to put her paws up on my shoulder and she lays her head here and then pushes into my neck, right on my vagus nerve. So it helps slow it down. I'm forced to take deeper breaths. I'm forced to take slower breaths. Seeing a dog put their paws up and push into the vagus nerve, a lot less gray area there.
Very specific. Very specific. Yes. And that's what it's about. It's about the specific task to accomplish a certain thing with your dog as a therapy.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know about the vagus nerve. And that I think when somebody is in need of a service dog or has a dog that they really want to be trained for service work and they're looking for a service dog trainer, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish there was just this general website of information on what to look for in specifically a service dog trainer, because if you're ever taken to court because a business says your dog did X or Y or Z, you need to be able to prove without a shadow of a doubt that your dog is specifically task trained. And if you happen to come across a trainer who just wants your money, which there are lots and lots of, good luck. They need to know what, why, and how it helps you and how it mitigates your disability.
It feels like, I don't know why I put this all together. I totally understand that a service dog is supposed to be trained for a task and all of that. I totally understand that they are protected, right, through the ADA and all of that stuff. But I guess I never put all of that together to, hey, if you have to go and defend yourself in court, I never sort of put it in that box or put it in that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I had all these different pieces, but then I never thought, well, do people actually take people to court over their service dog? But then there's like the flip side of it from this is my perspective of, it's really important that you not fake service dogs. So like that side of it, I totally see. I don't know. I just didn't like put all of that together, but it makes complete
Yeah.
sense. That's a
Yeah.
real mess.
It's so much to think about. I think the general public, specifically the ones that are like, ew, gross, why is that dog in the restaurant? I
Yeah.
think them and everybody else who maybe doesn't know a lot about service dogs just kind of lumps it into, oh, they just have anxiety. They just need to bring their dog
Yes.
everywhere. It's really an ESA. So for people that actually need it but have never had one before and aren't super knowledgeable and are just getting started into that service dog world and having this animal by your side 24/7 like a 2-year-old and 4-year-old toddler, there is so much to know, and there's so much misinformation out there, and there's so many trainers that want to take your money, and there's so many handlers that are just also potentially misinformed, and so they're giving you misinformation, and it's a lot because it's
Yeah.
not just having a dog next to you that's housebroken and doesn't pull on a leash.
Yes.
It's you have to think about so many different aspects about the businesses. Is this a business that doesn't want you in there because of cultural differences and they're also, not necessarily informed of the laws? Is it because they had a service dog, in quotes, go in there and peed on product, and so now they're like, well, no, we have a bad taste in our mouth? Is it somebody that presented an ID and the security guard says, the last team gave me an ID. Why don't you have an ID? You can't come in unless you show me an
Yes.
ID. So there's so much to think about when you have a
Yeah.
service dog. And I think the biggest one that a lot of people don't think about, whether they're getting a service dog or they're a family member whose loved one needs a service dog, is the amount of unwanted attention that you get when you have a dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
It is
Because
bananas.
we're dog crazy at this point. Our
We're dog
society
crazy.
is
Yeah.
dog bonkers. And
Yeah.
so if your dog gets to go somewhere where another dog doesn't get to go to, it's like you stick out like a sore thumb and all of a sudden there's a
Yeah.
bright light on you and all you want to do is disappear with your dog
Yes.
that you need
Yeah.
to be able to do your grocery shopping.
Yes. And so specifically for people with agoraphobia, which is a fear of, the outside
Yes.
world, and then having a service dog and then having all of this unwanted attention, or for teenagers or anyone that's experiencing anxiety or just a fear of social situations, and now you have this service dog. So when I was doing some group training with service dogs and then with clients, or even people that were thinking about getting a service dog, either for themselves or their slightly older children, I would always tell them, why don't you come hang out with us while we're doing this group training so you can see how much attention we get. Yes, we're in a group, but consider the amount of attention that we're getting
Yes.
and think about whether you're okay potentially having that all by yourself with a dog. It doesn't matter if it's a scary looking dog, a fluffy little dog, it does not matter.
And I think we are dog crazy, but I also think we are weirdly, as a society, I feel like it puts your disability out there, that you have a disability that other people couldn't see before. And I think our culture is like weirdly okay with invading people's privacy about disabilities. Because when my friend lost her leg, people would come up to her all the time and say, what'd you do? And she's like, what'd I do? She's like, somebody ran me over and I lost my leg. What do you mean? And she got to a point where she'd be like, it's none of your business. You can move along. But during that healing process, we were like, who was asking you? And now, I mean, now she can joke about things. She's like, oh, excuse me, I got to take off my leg for a minute, or I got to go out and put my leg on to see the sunset, so she can joke around about things. But at the moment, like when it first happened, it was insane to all of us how comfortable people were addressing her disability with her, who had no relationship with her.
Literally strangers.
Yes, complete strangers. So I'm guessing when you add a service dog to a person, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a dog and a disability. Now I'm very curious.
Yeah, it's 1,000 times worse than probably what most people even can fathom. And then if you choose not to answer those questions, you're at least I've experienced being called horrible names. I mean, all the regular like bitch
Ew.
and all those other things, but even worse names. And then I've gotten into a political debate. It turned political because I didn't want to share what my disabilities were.
Ew.
Yeah, it's
What?
I think I thought I had a pretty strong backbone, the human aggression stuff. I learned to put on my big girl pants having a service dog because the entire world, children and adults alike, think that your service dog is there for them. And if you
Mm.
don't let them pet your service dog, you're a terrible human being. But you have to be able, and that's the other part is not only do you have all this attention, but are you okay with potential confrontation? Not necessarily fighting or anything, but being able to tell people no and stick to that no.
Yeah, because your disability isn't enough for you have to handle to go out in the world and go about your business. Now you also have to figure out how to defend yourself and your dog. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
it's insanity.
It's so
Yeah.
terrible to have anxiety and have to then
Yeah.
confront people. Like, come on.
You
So
know,
if you're
It's
listening to
bad.
this, I don't think our listeners are the people that are
probably
doing this,
not.
but like maybe spread awareness that that dog
Yeah.
is working and don't bother them.
Just sitting here thinking, legit, I'm as dog bonkers as the next person. And I am a complete extrovert. And I will talk to anyone, anywhere. I'm the annoying person in the store at the grocery store, like standing in line, like start gabbing with you, whatever, until I see a person with a service dog. And then I just smile and I stand there quietly. Like, I because we understand. I don't
Yeah.
understand their experience. I just mean that I have a respect for your dog is working and I
Yeah.
understand that your dog is working and there ain't
Yeah.
no way that I'm getting in the middle of that, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
it control yourself, people. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yes, but you bring up a good point though, Heather. So there's a lot of people, it typically tends to be newer handlers, right? They're just getting into whether they want to let people pet their dog or not in terms of the people distracting them.
Mm,
Meaning, yes, the general public shouldn't distract service dogs, intentionally, especially. And by that, I mean going up to the team and pretending the human's not even there and then just engaging and talking and petting the dog. I'm talking about if a person across the mall can't go, oh my gosh, it's a puppy. They're not, yes, they are intentionally saying that, but they're
yeah,
not in your dog's space. And your dog should be being
fair.
the key word, trained enough to be able to either completely ignore it or be like, interesting, and then turn right back around and go to work. So while I understand that there's a ton of handlers that don't agree with me on this, that your dog should be trained to ignore fairly minor distractions. A person grabbing its face is not a minor distraction.
No. Oh my
No.
But
gosh, no.
somebody talking to it from a few feet away, either your dog should know to, you should have trained your dog enough to ignore that person, or you ignore that person
Mhm.
and get your dog's focus on you. So
Yeah.
the world is not going to cater to anybody, let alone service dog handlers. And I think that's again where another misconception comes in is that people are going to cater to you, and they're not. They're not
Yeah.
at all.
I think, and what I mean is, if I was standing there, my normal inclination for a person and their pet just sitting there is that I'm going to walk up and start talking to them about their dog and, like,
Yeah,
engage in a conversation. Whereas if it's somebody in a grocery store and they're standing there with their service dog, I'm still going to talk to them like normally, but I would
yeah,
never ever be like, oh, can I pet your dog?
yeah.
Whereas if I take
Get down on your knees, like, hello, it's a good boy.
hi, can we roll on the floor? Whereas if I take Tiago out and about somewhere, I'm like, oh my God, everybody just pet him. Everyone love it's
Oh, yeah,
completely different, right?
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
And people need to be aware of it. And I feel like it's like this matter of respect. And
Hmm.
don't assume that just because there's fur that you're allowed to like reach out and touch the dog. Do
Yes.
not ever assume that, because they might not be wearing a vest, or they might
Hmm.
not be, right? So talk a little bit about that, because what are the
Yeah.
rules? What do they have to show? Do they have to have a sign on them that says "Do not pet me ever," and the person has to wear a blinking red light that says I have a disability? Like, what, you know?
Right. Yeah. So federally and for states, or at least Arizona, but federally, the only thing is required for a service dog is that they are housebroken. So no peeing inside of buildings, no
Fair
pooping
point.
inside of buildings, and tasks that are trained specifically to mitigate the person's disability. So there are some states that request that the dog wear a certain color collar.
Oh,
You don't have to listen because federal kind of takes priority over that. If it's a I think I'm going to say this correctly. If it's a hindrance, states' rights or states' laws, federal supersedes. And I think it's the reverse as well. So like federal doesn't allow cats, but that state allows cats, so that is less of a hindrance for the human, and so it is allowed in those states. So all the dog needs is the housebroken and the tasks. Because it gets so hot in Arizona specifically, I'll just kind of talk about our state. There are some handlers, I'm one of them, that chooses at certain times in certain months to work our dogs naked. And that just means a collar and a leash. I have also
The
trained my
dog, not
dogs.
the people.
the dog, not the people. Yes.
Yes, the dog, not the people. Yes.
Mhm.
Um, I have also trained her to work quote unquote naked, meaning she knows the term, let's go to work, go say hello, or go potty, or go sniff, and then let's get back to work.
Gotcha.
Some handlers throughout the US train their dogs that when the vest or harness is on, that means work time. And when it's off, that means,
Yes.
you're puppy again. In Arizona, it just gets too hot that I have mesh harnesses and vests, and sometimes even that is too much. And
Yeah.
so my dogs have been trained to just be able to work on a flat collar in the summer. I know a lot of people find that very unnerving to not have their dog labeled. I feel like for them, the labeling of their dog gives them more sense of security. And
Mm.
so I say, do you. They
Yes.
aren't legally required to be labeled, but if it helps you feel more comfortable going into a business or establishment and your dog is labeled, label away.
Yeah.
With that said, sometimes people put too many small
Mm.
wording labels on their dogs, and they'll have 15 to 20 patches with, small writing. These patches are 4x4 on average with like 5 or 6 lines of text. And so what does the public have to do to read those? They have to get closer. And
Oh,
then
it's such a good point.
they're closer to the dog. The person doesn't realize that they're just reading, potentially just reading the patches. And so then they think they're trying to pet the dog, or maybe they're uncomfortable with people that close. And so sometimes one simple patch on either side that says do not pet or service dog or do not distract, sometimes while it doesn't look as cool, I get it, I understand, but it's easier for the general public
Yeah,
to at least
for
from
sure.
a further distance read when we have so many I see these very cute patches on Etsy
Mm.
that are, themed, but with that smaller writing, they can't see it. They have to
Yep.
get close to read. So,
Yeah,
That is such a smart point. You know, us dog people, we really like our flash. So we like,
of
the
course.
matching crates and the matching
Yes.
collars and the all the things. But
Yep.
that is something I would have never ever thought about. And we had a previous guest, our friends Cindy and Chris Ann. Cindy has
Hmm.
a seeing eye dog, June. And for her, she has her seeing eye harness, which is, hey,
Yeah.
we're working, hey, we're not working, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the
Yep.
harness has a specific use for her, so it sort of all ties together. And I feel
Mhm.
like that is a more commonly known item, I guess,
Yes.
here for,
Yep.
oh, that denotes service dog, right? Whereas it's a little bit more clear. I like the patch thing. I think you bring up a really
Hmm.
good point, but I could see the pros and cons of wanting to do it versus not wanting to do it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
I have my own personal experience with my standard poodle and my Dutch Shepherd, and then dogs that I've had for board and train. So a variety of breeds. I feel like in my experience that I tend to get less attention or dog calls, as I call them, instead of cat calls. Dog calls.
I love it.
And never to me. I'm talking about to the dog. But I feel like there's less of that. The less gear that the dog has on, or the more simple gear that the dog has on. And when I have had clients that want their dog to understand when it's just a collar and leash and working goes on a verbal cue, we almost never get bothered by the general public, almost ever. It's I don't know if it's just assumed that it's a working dog and they're just kind of going through what kind of work it could be. I was at a festival a couple months back with Chamomile before she needed a public access break. And I have a Mexico flag patch on her. And it was a Latino event. I think I told you this, Christy.
No, I don't think so, but I can already imagine where it's going.
Yes. So I am Latina, but I look very white. I look very, very white. I'm very white passing. Camo has brindle, but she's for the most part pretty black.
Dark. Yeah.
Right. And so she's a Dutch Shepherd, so she has these prick ears. So I have her in a tactical harness. It's just the style I prefer, and it has a handle on it. So if I need any assistance for whatever reason, that handle is there for me to grab quickly. Well, I have a patch on, a Mexico flag patch on the side of her vest that is on my thigh. So when we're walking, the public can't really see it. It's, not facing them. And it has the do not pet on the other side where people can see it. Well, she was going potty and she was with the Mexico flag patch facing the sidewalk. And this gentleman and his son, maybe about 8 or so, walked by, and they're Latino as well, and they're speaking Spanish. And so the son in Spanish asked the dad, "Hey, Dad, is that a police dog?" To Camel, because she has prick ears, she's black, she has this pretty kind of tough-ish looking tactical vest on. And I was just wearing black pants and I think a black shirt, so I looked less creative than I normally do.
Yes.
And so the dad, I look at him and kind of just smile out of the corner of my mouth, and he smiles back. And in Spanish, he says to his son, "No, that's Border Patrol." And he knew that I understood. And I start laughing, and the son just has this terrified look on his face, like, what?
No.
And in Spanish, he goes, I'm just kidding. And he goes, "That's her service dog," because he had passed us earlier. And so but his son was not with him when he passed us earlier.
Oh, man.
That's Border Patrol. That kid was probably like, what?
Yeah. But
she just releases the dog to round everybody up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So patches make a difference on the public's perception.
It really does. I hear you there. My goodness. Oh. Hey everyone, we had so much fun with Sunny Bravo and talking to her about service dogs and service dog training that we had to cut this episode into 2. So if you are listening to episode 57, come back in 2 weeks where we finish up with Sunny in episode 58. Thanks so much for listening.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.